It's been a hot minute since I've been back to YouTube. Last I posted a video was back in 2023 when I finished my last sketchbook. And this big boy is 300 pages long. So it took me quite a long time to get this completed. Yeah, my table is messed as it is with artists in general. Let's see what my 7th sketchbook has to offer. This one here turned out really pretty. I am so happy with it, and it's like glossy and beautiful. So we open it up to me trying to fix the decaying spine with some handy little tools like my art printed out and washi tape. And the first page is supposed to be a swatch page, and I was supposed to do all of the ugly swatches right here, but I ended up not sticking to that. Here is the intro. Right here is where I would usually write a note to myself about all of these, the artworks that I have in here, the feelings that I have, because sketchbooks are just really personal. They're not just illustrating my art journey, but my frame of mind as well. This one spanned from September 2023 to May 2025. I have a lot of ink illustrations in here, lots of novel inspiration, and my characters, fantasy, medieval art, and then towards the end I started adding in my own poetry. This was the first challenge that I started with, Mystical Witchtober. And this list is by Isabi. I love her logo, so I even added her logo in there. And I didn't get to finish it, of course. But I had plans, as you can see. I had big plans. And this is me experimenting with ink and some beautiful metallic markers. And then I have like a trend from TikTok, and I burnt the edges of this beautiful paper, and I was experimenting with some stamps, as you can see, as well as more metallic Posca pens. And then here is one of my favorite pages of one of the characters in my novel series. Her name is Harrian. Every single time I draw Harrian, I think I spoke about this in my last sketchbook tour. I mean, look at this. She just always turns out gorgeous. Look at her. Absolutely amazing. That just the character itself can bring out a lot of creativity. I did a self-portrait, and I saw Gretel Lasky on Instagram. She loves adding these sticky tapes to her illustrations and sketches and all over her sketchbook, and I love the idea of that, so I tried it. It didn't quite work out, but I love it on her style. And this is me drawing like every single character in the novel who is anything, like means anything to the plot. So we have Riuel, Segara, Janara, Ivera, Cho, Rehan. Usually when I create characters, I add a sort of color scheme to them. So for Riuel, I picked green, and I kind of relate that to his character as well. In the story, crystals are power. I also have this thing, it's the law of crystals, and I added like I made a little booklet for myself, which I thought was so cute. And it's basically going over the laws of the magic system. It's got a lot of spoilers inside, and the prettiness ends here. So each character has a color scheme that will also relate to the crystals that they wear. And okay, I might have added crystals because I just love drawing jewelry and having glowy little artifacts on my characters. But it's a win-win because it adds intrigue to the world as well. There are so many characters here, and I wish that I could draw all of them digitally, and that's what I'm trying to do at the moment. Maybe draw them all in a chibi style, which is simpler, but still shows the color of their skin, eyes, hair, clothes pretty nicely. I just love blue dragons. And so, of course, I added a blue dragon to the story. These are actually the main villains, which I did in the Castlevania style. I was doing a little study of the eyes that Castlevania uses. I absolutely love the show, and the art style takes it to another level. It's truly a beautiful, stunning style. And I'm kind of obsessed with maps, but I don't usually add maps to my sketchbooks. I do maps in a bigger scale, so I can add more detail. I can get experimentational with colors. Here is Witchtober, which started, and I got through a couple of these. I realized that this entire bottle was warped and the perspective just wasn't right. This sketch is so cute though. Ooh, so I had big plans for this page. I was supposed to do ink, though I was gonna paint everything black and just have the mouth eerily peek out from the shadows. And I love her pose. Vampires in general, I've always wanted to write a book about vampires, but I never locked down an idea. Maybe I have now, who knows? This was for a story that I had planned completely. I feel like my art and my novel writing really feeds each other. So when I get an idea for a story, I usually have a ton of inspiration to draw what I see in my head. I imagine things very, very vividly, and it's usually the setting or the themes that come to me first. And this is the same thing that happened with this page. This theme about love and war and the dichotomy between the two. That's why throughout this, all of my sketchbooks actually, you'll find them relating to my stories a whole lot. Storytelling and art for centuries has gone hand in hand. And then here's more mystical Witchtober. I did more Castlevania inspired characters. These are more main characters from my novel. I do have draft 1 finished, so these characters in specific are very fleshed out. These ones slightly more sketchy, and you might notice something. So the evil characters, they have red stars, and then the other characters who are like more morally good, I had blue. Because blue is my favorite color. And here we have some unfinished artworks. And I usually have a yearly redraw of these two characters, the main two of the novel. And this time I didn't get to finish it. But I love the poses, and I kind of like that the pose, the dress, has some attention drawn to it, the jewelry as well, rather than the face stealing all the show. And this was a book cover that I created. My first book cover commission that I did digitally for Sean. And Sean, because of this, became one of my closest friends. And yeah, he's like an amazing author. And here we have some of my favorite ink drawings ever. This is Harrian. This is her as well. Every single artwork of this woman, perfect. This is just a random fairy with the pretty pens that I stole from my mother. And that one came out so well, so I decided, hey, let me do other characters. So I did another character, and another character, and another character, and another character, but these two I did not ink. Poor guys. And here we have my first attempt at coloring with these color pencils that I had bought. Not the best, especially with a dark skin tone. It's really hard to get a nice wash of color that doesn't detract from the depth of the face. I struggled even more with the hair to the point where I gave up. And then here's me experimenting with pen a little bit more. This is when I started writing my novel. Here she is. I started writing this book when I created this illustration. I thought it would be a good way to visualize what was in my mind and get a feel for not just the character, but the vibe that I wanted to bring to the table. You know, I wanted something gothic and dark and a little bit eerie, and I think I pulled it off. And here's where the chapter headers started to come in, and I inked them in, and they are just beautiful. I absolutely, I love how free I was with these. I had a lot of fun with them as well. And this one here I ended up inking digitally in Procreate, and I created this illustration. And then this was me doing some experiments for maps. So this is the map of my world. I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do for the borders, and it's not a very nice continent to be placed on a map. Each country is slightly too small to illustrate all of the castles and the landmarks and the taverns and all of the ancient tombs. I experimented with maybe something like this and then having close-ups on the side, on the edges, but it doesn't work. So I think I'm gonna have to let go of this design one day and redesign the continent so that it works. Most novels that you pick up are actually this size. So if I do it like this, there are so many landmarks in just this country alone. I can't do so many landmarks in here and have more in here and have the reader see them all. I'm very, very attached to this design, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. Ugh, it's truly a dilemma. This is me experimenting with some stamps. I was doing some sketches of movies that I was watching. So I love just putting up Netflix in the background and then sitting and sketching, drawing, doing commissions. And then here we have the main characters of the novel that I'm writing. So I finished the first book and I realized, hey, this is a 5-book series. Am I really going to do this as a debut? This is the first time I'm ever writing and finishing a novel. Can I really do this? And the answer was no. And I wanted to get a little more practice writing. So I decided to start a book in the same world, but following the parents of the main characters of that book. And the parents of the main character in Revna was Sigara and Riuel. And that's when I started writing The Land for Sigara, which I'm still currently in the midst of at the moment. Hopefully one day it'll make it to the world. Oh, this page has one of my favorite sketches ever. And here we have a little design of the main character, Sigara. And I love lace in clothes. If you give me sheer, as you can see, anything sheer, anything lace when it comes to sleeves, I absolutely adore. And here we have the opening lines to the novel. This was while I was still planning out every chapter, what's gonna happen next, and I was seeing if the pacing was right, but I just love the art of writing prose itself. So I wrote down a few sentences of the first chapter, the opening lines, and the gates of this manor that the setting takes place in are so vivid in my mind. I imagined like these elaborate, intricate designs in perhaps iron and the crest of the noble house. This one was for an experimentational world where the islands are floating in the sky, and I thought, hey, what if there are a few islands that are floating and then there's the main continent on the actual landscape? And I was like, how would you make a map like that? Wouldn't you need 2 versions of the map? And then how would you get detail within each island? I love maps. Pressed flowers are absolutely gorgeous, and I wanted to stick them in my sketchbook, and it turned out really nice. But this is a more experimentational page. As you can see, I put my handprint here. So I stuck this little sketch of Sigara. And here we have Sigara's best friend, another main character in the novel. I love this sketch of her as well. Really, really pretty. It doesn't really look like her, but she's gorgeous. And I found out that the reason that I have pointed noses in so many of my artworks earlier on is because this was when Demon Slayer was airing, and I was absolutely obsessed with the style. And Demon Slayer has these really, really pointed noses. And here we have more. This is another main character in the novel. Sagara's grandmother, who is an antagonist. It looks so pretty. And here we have more experimentational crap. Raven, and just I was seeing how good these markers and go on black paper. And here we have, I ruined the sketch. This was supposed to be of the main character of the novel that I had finished, Ivera. I don't know if that looks like her. It doesn't really have a vibe. This was me reading Navola by Paolo Bacigalupi. I just had a really clear image of Mirio, is the main character's tutor. This novel was so vivid in my mind, and I had plans to draw the bull that he describes. There's this really prevalent imagery of a bull, and I didn't get to do any of it because I was just so absorbed into the novel. And here's me doing some action poses. I love how sassy this sketch looks. I did more ink artworks, ink, even more ink, and I just love cross-hatching. And then I did a little chibi. This was me doing more ink, experimentational sketches, another chibi of Sagara. This was of Sagara as well. This was of House of the Dragon. And once again, my novel made its way into art. I had not drawn buildings that much. I think you can probably tell from the sketch. I had a very vivid idea of the layout of the manor that the setting takes place in. I had a very vivid image of the entrance and the size and the scope and the famous wall that surrounded it. And yeah, this is like insane. So this is more ink sketches, and then more artwork of the manor, and then more Sagara artwork, and then some fan art for White Blood, or was it Unholy Blood on Webtoon. These are the main three girls in the novel, or women I should say. Sagara, her half-sister, and her cousin. And then here's me doing the crest, and I thought it would be a really nice way to represent the Valdane by putting the V on the D, like this. There's a V, and then there's the big D for Dane. And this is another sketch that I took digitally, and I made a chapter header for it, but it didn't turn out quite nice, so I scrapped it. Here we have the very famous favorite banner image for the story as a whole. I have this in the novel itself, the draft one, and every time I look at this, I feel like it just represents the vibe of the novel so well. And yeah, that's why I stand by creative dumps on the page. Like, just draw whatever you want, and one day you'll just hit something so dead center, so accurate to what you see in your mind, that you will like treasure it forever. And it's not a perfect sketch by any means, but it's really special to me. And then here we have more Sagara and the Marlowe crest, and I was doing a little creative eye there. And then this is more ink, and here we have some plans for content for YouTube and Instagram. Here we have a little sketch which didn't come out nice anatomically. And I found that I love chapter headers. Another comic and a little sketch of Sagara randomly. This comic has Cho, which is Sagara's grandmother. It has Ryuel here being chaotic, and then Ryuel's best friend, Rehan. And here we have Ryuel's brother, drunk as always, and more chapter header ideas. I kind of forgot about these. I might have to go digital with this one because I love that. So this one, the chapter is called The Poison Weaver, and I thought it would be such a creative idea to have like a jar of poison and the contents be string that someone can embroider on something or stitch on clothing. It was such a creative idea. I absolutely love this. I completely forgot that I had this. And then this was me trying to get the typography for the book. And I did a little sketch of Cigara. And I was getting better at full body artworks. I did mess up, but this one here, the head I feel was a little too big. But other than that, I really love how her outfit came out. I love drapery, and yeah. And here we have an illustration inspired by Tiny Glade. My 2025 goals. And we have more medieval art. I drew a hennin. This was the start of a very clear obsession. Then I have some experiments with my brush pen. And here we have Cigara's stepfather, is also very prevalent in the novel. I got this design down and I feel like he was very inspired by my late grandfather, who was a very, very tall, lanky man. This was not really how I imagine her stepfather. I imagine him to be a more chubbier kind of old man. And then just some pretty experiments, which got nowhere, but I love drawing these vines. You'll see them like all over my art. And here I was doing, nobody can read my handwriting, which is great. But this was a little poem about a new character that I had added to the novel, a jester. I had realized that something was missing when it came to the tone of the novel. And I love adding humor and sarcasm, but when you're writing a novel with such dark themes about war, broken families, it's hard to get in humor, unless of course you add a jester whose entire purpose or job was to bring joy and laughter. And this was me drawing the main characters of the novel. So we have, this is Jorlin, this is Rehan, this is Riuel, this is Cigara, the jester, and then Cigara's grandmother. I really love how the characters turned out. They look and feel like themselves. And here we have two of my favorite pages. This is a little poem that I did for world building in the world of Revna. And it was wedding traditions. I realized that I do have a lot of weddings in my books, but I don't have much world building on wedding traditions and the clothes that they would wear, the words that they would say, which kinds of religions and how the religions would change their outerwear and innerwear of their soul, and how they carry themselves. So this is me doing that. And then here we have the main character, Cigara, again, with her half-sister. And I love their relationship. And this sketch actually turned out so well. These are both done in pen, no pencil planning, none of that. And they came out like perfect representations of the characters. And when you are drawing characters, it's really, really difficult to do that firsthand without lots of sketches and lots of pre-planning. This was a page inspired by an illustration that I saw of a Mistborn scene, and I thought that scene was absolutely gorgeous. It had like flags of the different banners, and I thought it would be really nice to add the banners of the different houses in my world with that same kind of composition. I didn't get to finish it though, but it was nice to get the idea down, even though it's just a sketch. And here we have more poetry. This poem was inspired by an essay on criticism by Alexander Pope. And I used a lot of angel imagery. And so while writing it, I thought, wow, let me just draw an angel. And so I filled up this page with that. Or it might have been the angel, which inspired these two ideas of the angel imagery and the thoughts that I had on an essay on criticism, which allowed them to come together. And here we have some moon experiments in acrylic. And these were plannings for other book covers. And then I was gonna do more book cover designs here. Here we have more poetry and a jester, a murderous jester, if you will. As I mentioned before, crystals are power in my world, and they are in all the jewelry and the world building or magic system. The world building and magic system are centered around crystals, and there are these twin crystals in particular that come up a lot within the plot of The Land for Sagara, and I thought it would be nice to illustrate the box that it comes in. And then we have more illustrations inspired by the novel. So the crown made of fabric, the mirror reflecting something different. And then we have the main characters, Sagara and Riuel. And here we have another story that I was hinting at earlier, inspired by vampires. This was me illustrating some of that. More of the vampire-inspired novel. I'm not writing that one at the moment. I usually plan out my novels and let them marinate. And whenever I have more ideas to deepen the themes and deepen the conflict in the characters, I keep adding it to those novel plans over the years, and then I come back to it when I feel like it's substantially done. This was a scene from the novel. A little spoilery, so I'm not gonna explain. These were some warm-up sketches and a little quirky firehead character. These were concept illustrations, sketches for the novel. So we have the three main perspectives: Sagara, Sagara's grandmother, and Riuel, the king, as well as the little jester in the background. Then we have, I was planning to do some character sheets and share them on Instagram. And I love drawing thumbnails in my sketchbook. Although it would be nice to have them digitally, I just prefer it traditionally with pen and paper. Here we have a cover image, the three main characters, a little bit about the world. And I was really inspired by that, so I did more. I was reading a book called Summers at Castle Auburn, and surprisingly, it was YA. A lot of the themes and plot kind of mirrored the plot and characters of The Land for Sagara, so it was really embedded in my mind for a very long time, and I decided to do some sketches of it. And then, of course, Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World specifically, was one of the biggest inspirations that I had for the world of The Land for Sagara. And up until now, Wheel of Time still inspires me. And then the show came out, and I was so inspired by the wardrobe and the visual effects of the Wheel of Time. It was brilliant, and I was gutted when it was announced to be cancelled. And here we have the main characters, Sagara and Riuel. And then here we have another character who is prevalent in the novel, but this and the chapter illustration for Riuel were both ruined by these. this sketchbook did not handle water well at all. This was a sketch of the jester, and I wanted to get her designs down, and yeah, I feel like I got the feel of her character. I feel like I got that down very, very accurately to what I imagined. And here we have the twin crystals again, and some of the final sketches, which are memes. Riuel and his best friend Rehan. And then we have Riuel in a wanted poster while he's undercover in his own country. They should update it. My eye bags have gotten better. And then we have a lovely heartfelt sketch of Segara and her stepfather to finish off the sketchbook tour. I don't usually add sketches or illustrations to the last few pages, and I want to say thank you for staying until the end. This is probably going to be a very long one. It took 51 minutes to film. I don't know how long it's going to take to edit. I'll have to cut down a lot, but thank you for staying. And I hope you stay for more, and if the novel's of interest to you, I hope that you stick around to see my journey in publishing and writing and illustrating the characters and setting. Thank you.